the market outcome like a tax. Okay. You have a question?
Oh, no, sure.
So that's what we're going to do. Any question? Have you guys started homework on the next class? No. You look so happy. I thought you already finished it. Okay, so let me review what we learned on the price setting. Okay, so this is demand and this is supply. And if the government does not intervene in the market, we know this is equilibrium price. And this is the equilibrium quantity. Okay? And we know this area represents what?
Consumer surplus.
Which one?
Consumer surplus.
Consumer. The one that is between the demand and the market price is consumer surplus. And this triangle represents the producer surplus, which is the firm's profit. Okay? Then the whole area here represents social welfare, right? Okay. And remember, social welfare is a measurement of efficiency, market efficiency. Okay. So we know that is the level of efficiency, the level of social welfare, and we can reach, when we leave the market alone. And after that, we introduce the price setting. Okay, price setting is a price, and that is below the market equilibrium price, right? Okay, the government use price setting because they think the market price is too high. Okay, so price setting is right here. With this price setting, what is created? What is created? Shortage is created. Okay, so we have this much of quantity supplied, and this is much of the quantity demanded. Okay. So, which quantity here is the quantity traded in the market? The amount of transaction in the market. Which one? Supply. This quantity here, quantity supplied, is the quantity traded in the market, right? Okay. So knowing there is a shortage, and then this amount of quantity traded in the market instead of this one, and we want to know how consumer surplus and producer surplus and the social welfare are changed due to pricing policy. Okay. So anybody remember how do we find consumer surplus under this price setting? How do we find producer surplus under this price setting? Anybody remember that? You want to come here?
I knew that was coming.
Why not?
That financials works.
On this area,
Uh-huh.
so it's going to be this value and this value if it intersects.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to be 1/2 times the base of
So
this one.
find the area of consumer surplus first on the graph.
Is it this one? Or wait, consumer surplus is this one.
Should be, yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the top part,
Yeah,
but how do we find that?
1/2 times base times height.
So where is the base?
Yep. Base is
Oh, yeah.
this one, and height is this one. Is that right?
Price selling.
Okay.
Lifeline.
Anybody want to help him? Anybody want to help him?
Dead weight loss.
So
Oh, yeah.
your space in the middle.
No, see when it, let's go straight up.
Straight up.
Which one is go straight up?
The
Quantity
quantity supplied. And then just draw your dotted line all
Keep
the way
going
up.
with the dot.
Oh, okay. There we go. Alright.
Okay.
So this is your dead weight loss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is that one? Oh,
That's your dead weight loss.
This is dead weight loss, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay.
Triangle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But thank you for trying, alright? Okay, it's good. Alright, so first thing you need to do is, we need to figure out what is the quantity we're looking at, because whatever consumer surplus or producer surplus we're talking about, it has to relate the quantity traded. That's why I asked you that question, what is quantity traded? Is this one. So the consumer surplus, the area represent that one is gonna relate to that. And the producer surplus area is going to reduce quantity traded as well because the consumer satisfaction gain from this much quantity. And the producer surplus, which is profit for the firms, also gain from selling this much quantity. So this quantity is a relevant one, okay? Because it's relevant one, so we're going to draw a straight line from this quantity here. Then we're going to look at the part of demand, the part of supply that is related to this quantity here. So this part of demand relate to this quantity, right? You guys with me? So this is those are the consumers who are going to buy this quantity, buy this good, and consume this good and get enjoyment out of it. So those are the consumers that eventually going to participate. Okay. What about producers? Who are the producers going to participate? From here to here, right? So those are the producers who are going to participate because those producers, this part of supply is below this price. So that means those firms' cost of making the goods is below the market price. So that's why they are going to participate. So the relevant demand is this, and the relevant supply is this. Okay. And the consumer surplus is the area between the demand and the market price, given the quantity that is bought or that is traded. So this is the consumer surplus. And producer surplus is the area between the market price and supply curve given the quantity traded. So it's this part. Are you guys comfortable here?
Yeah, now I am.
How about the rest of you?
Yep.
Okay, so now we know this is a social welfare, and this social welfare is less than the original scenario when the government does not intervene. So this is the amount of social welfare that is lost. So we call it deadweight loss. So this is deadweight loss. And also there is a concept. If you read book, there's a concept called a full economic price. Full economic price. We know this is a price the consumers are paying, right? But what is a full economic price? Remember the example I gave to you. And Black Friday, everybody is got into line, and eventually, the people who came the earliest got the good, right? Okay, so not only you paying for the market price of the good, whatever the price that for that computer, you're also paying for the effort, for the time, for the energy. Okay, full economic price captures all of those. Okay, so how do we determine the full economic price those consumers are paying? Okay, we know this is the price that they're paying for the good, but what is the other part of cost, the other price they're paying for? Anybody want to give a guess?
Time spent.
Huh?
The
Say-
full economic price.
Mhm.
Full economic price, would that be like the accounting price and like the economic price, like time and
Would not be accounting. Accounting price would be this price actually, and this full economic price basically is economic price. Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm. Because it takes into consideration of your opportunity
Right,
cost.
opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
because you will stay in line, that's opportunity cost. You could be sleeping, right?
Right.
So you're paying for that. So that has to be included. Okay. So how do we find it on the graph? What is the full economic price those consumers are paying for this particular good in this market?
The consumer price?
Hmm?
The consumer price is the full economic price.
Consumer.
The price above the price.
You want to show it here on the graph?
Oh,
Try it out. Try it out. Yeah, you don't have to be right. But try it out. Where is that full economic price?
I mean, this is the price selling, so
Mhm.
all of this above this selling are the full price.
It's somewhere here, right?
Yeah, somewhere here.
Where is it? Give a guess.
Here.
Okay.
Any
Or
given
here?
point.
It's good guess. If the full economic price is right here, this guy is going to participate because this guy's valuation is up here, right? But how about the guys here? They will not participate because their valuation is below this full economic price. So in order for those people to participate, the full economic price must be lower than their valuation.
Well, doesn't it still meet their criteria if the line goes all the way up? The one that you shaded, wouldn't everyone there be available, or wouldn't they all be able to participate?
Okay. Yeah, it's still on the right track. Actually, the full economic price is the price that divide the whole set of consumer into two parts: the one that participate and the one do not participate. Those are the guys who participate. Those guys' valuation must be above full economic price. And those guys from here to here actually do not participate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those guys' valuation of the goods must be lower than that. So the full economic price is the price that divide the whole group of consumer into the ones that participate and into the ones that do not participate. So now, given this fact, where is that full economic price?
At any given point on that shaded line, right?
Where?
Is it an exact point?
Where?
Alright,
On the
put
line.
marker on, like,
It'd
on
be
that
where
line.
the quantity supply intersects with the demand curve. It would be my guess,
It's here.
right there.
I agree.
That's right.
That's where you pointed to at the very beginning, so I was thinking that was it.
That's right. Yeah. That is a full economic price those consumers are paying. Okay, and that's how we are able to divide the whole market, consumer into two parts. Okay, so this is so this full economic price includes two parts. This is the part which is the price of the goods. Okay, this is the price of the good. And this is what we call the opportunity cost of buying this good. And in the book, there's another name, but it means the same, non-pecuniary. They call it the non-pecuniary cost, but basically we're talking about opportunity cost. It's really getting hard while you're standing here teaching. You not feel it in my office. Okay, so now is it clear here, guys? What's this graph? Okay. Good. And one more concept I need to mention because I think I just mentioned a little bit at the end of last class. Okay. So we use this graph here, this analysis to determine the social welfare. We add consumer surplus, producer surplus together, and we say this is social welfare. In the last class, I introduced another approach. I say this approach tells you this. Social welfare is equal to the social benefit minus social cost of the traded goods. So, social welfare is equal to the social benefit of the traded goods, generated by the traded good, minus the social cost generated by the traded goods. Okay. So we know this is the quantity traded. Those are the goods that are traded. Okay, so let's look at what are the social benefit come out of this quantity, come out of this good. The social benefit must come from, you need to write this down. This social benefit must come from consumer satisfaction, the enjoyment, because that is the ultimate social benefit. The profit, the wage, and the salary, the price, none of those are considered as social benefit. Social benefit is satisfaction, is utility gained by the people using it.
So how do you measure that?
A good question. It's a good question. And next chapter, we're going to talk about that. Okay. That's social benefit. Okay? Is represent utility, enjoyment. You get out of that. Okay? We know those are the people who are going to participate, who is going to enjoy this quantity, going to get enjoyment, get utility out of it. And the valuation. Okay, so here it's another, it's a little bit the introduction on that. So valuation represent how much they value the good and the amount of satisfaction they would get if they're not paying for the good. If they're paying for the good, then the amount of satisfaction you are getting has to be, the valuation has to deduct the price of good. Okay. So this part of demand curve here represents this potential social benefit generated from this quantity here. What about the social cost of the goods that is come from this quantity? And this represent the social cost, because this part of the supply curve represent the participating firms and producing the good. And each point here we talk about represent the cost of making each good, right? Okay. So this is individual's valuation, represent individual's valuation. This represent manufacturer's cost of making it. So this represents social benefit of this quantity, and this represents social cost of making the good. So this minus that, given that is quantity traded, that's why this area represents social welfare. Okay, so in this approach here, we don't need to know where the price is at. We don't need to know. The only thing we need to know is this, the quantity traded. Okay? So that's why I want to introduce this approach, because this approach tells you we really don't care about the transfer payment, because that does not come into the picture in the social welfare. The only thing that matters is quantity traded. Okay. So we're going to use this approach to analyze price floor as well. Okay, price floor is a little bit more complicated than this one. Okay, so any questions here? If not, we're going to move on to the price floor. Price floor is used when government thinks the equilibrium price is too high or too low. Too low. What is a typical classical example of price floor policy? Minimum wage, right? Mm-hmm. And what is the consequence of the price floor?
Increased costs.
Direct consequence.
Loss of social welfare.
what is direct consequence? The surplus of labor. We have surplus or shortage. We have surplus, right? Okay. So here will be the quantity demanded. Here will be quantity supplied. So we create a surplus, and in the labor market, that will be the unemployment. Okay. So now let's analyze the consumer surplus, the change of consumer surplus, change of producer surplus, and change of social welfare. So how do we do this now? So what's the very first thing you need to determine before we analyze consumer surplus producer? The quantity traded in the market. Quantity traded in the market. What's the amount of quantity that is bought and that is sold? What is quantity, actual quantity traded in the market?
The demand.
It's QD, right?
Yeah.
It's QD here, right? So this is quantity traded. So if we want to analyze consumer surplus, producer surplus, that's the relevant quantity. Now, can you tell me the area represent consumer surplus for this much quantity traded? Who are the people who are going to participate, buy the good at that price floor?
Wouldn't it be the suppliers?
Hmm?
Wouldn't it be the suppliers who are paying for the price floor?
So here it is all the consumers, right?
Yeah.
Among all of those, who is the one that's going to buy the good at that price?
The ones above it.
Do everybody see that? Those guys. And their valuation above this price. So they're gonna participate, they're gonna buy. And their satisfaction, their surplus is represented by this. Okay? How about producers? Who are the producers that's gonna participate? This is the price right now. Who are the firms that is cost of making the good that is lower than that?
Everything to the left.
All of that, right? All those firms cost of making the goods is lower than the price floor. So all of them would be able to make money, have profit by producing. Okay. So all those companies going to produce. But who are the ones that are able to sell?
The lowest price.
The left of the demand.
Yeah, the left of the quantity demand.
Yeah, that little piece on the bottom left.
It's here, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain to me why? And can you use an example in the market to explain why eventually those as a firm are able to sell the good at that price? Even though all this firm from here to here, the cost of making goods lower than that.
Because that's all that's demanded.
So basically you have this many producers compete for those limited amount of consumers.
Yeah, those can compete. Those can compete better because they can produce it at a lower price, so they'll be able to.
They can compete, but even they cannot manipulate the price, but they can use money.
They'll use
to
their
spend
profit,
That's right,
So,
spend on the
marketing or
advertisement.
whatever.
Yeah, spend on the marketing strategy, right? Eventually, they spend money on those things because they are able, they can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why those are the guys who are able to sell. Okay, so if those are the guys who are able to sell, so those are the guys who are going to make profit out of it.
Walmart.
So what is the producer surplus area?
Everything above that.
So this is our social welfare again. But now I'm going to change the situation a little bit. I'm going to change the situation a little bit. A subtle change and can make a whole lot of difference. While I'm explaining to you, I did not mention what's going on with these extra quantities, right? Okay. Assume those are just stored somewhere. Okay. Let's say those extra quantity are actually bought by the government.
They're bought.
Yeah, those extra quantities are bought by the government.
Okay, like
Government
tobacco.
bought them and put it in a storage place.
You're saying between the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied.
Yeah, this is our surplus, right?
Okay.
The extra quantity that is not sold in the market.
Right.
Okay. Because government set the price floor, so they feel like we're responsible for the extra quantity produced, so they bought it. And they put it in the storage. They're not disseminating them. They're not deliver those extra quantity to the consumer. They just put it in everywhere they can store it. Does that story change what's going on in the social welfare? This trick takes a lot of thinking.
There'll be more economic stimulation.
Hmm?
Firms will have more capital to work with, so you have economic stimulation, I would assume. But then you're using tax dollars.
So does that change anything in the social welfare? So which means I'm asking, is this going to be different?
Yeah, it's gonna be like there wasn't a price floor, because they're buying all the surplus, so they're taking out that part.
You'd have to add.
It's gonna be the whole triangle instead of like,
I'm going to add another scenario, make it even more complicated, okay? And you can compare. Now the government bought it. They did not put in the storage. He gave it to the consumer to have it.
yeah, that changes, because now the people that were paying that high price,
Yes.
it changes the demand.
Yes. We know that scenario will be different from scenario when the government does not deliver good to the other consumers, right? Now, how that social welfare is changing. But let's go back to the first scenario. The government bought those extra quantity, but just put in a storage place. When the government put in a storage place, does any consumer, other consumer, is any other consumer can enjoy this, is able to enjoy it? No, it's in a storage place, right? So does the social benefit change?
Not with that division.
We talk about the social benefit, right?
Does for the producer though.
What did I say about the social benefit?
Consumer satisfaction.
Consumers utility, consumer satisfaction. That's the only benefit actually belongs to the society. Does that change?
But it reduces social cost.
It does not change, right? Okay. But you see, it reduces social cost. But with this price, we know no matter government buy this or not, this quantity will be produced. Okay? So with this price floor, based on the law of supply, law of demand, this much quantity will be demanded and this much quantity will be supplied, no matter whether the government buy this surplus or not. Right? Okay. So the story that government is going to buy it and put in a storage place actually does not change anything to this original story. Why? The good itself actually just transfer from one storage place to another storage place. From the whole society point of view, nothing has changed. No production has changed, and no actual consumer satisfaction has changed.
So why do it?
They're just a little transfer of payment. Now the payment transferred from the government to the producer. Producer do not have to bear the cost of making it, but now the government bears the cost of making it. You see, that's the only difference from this original scenario in the story. There is a transfer of payment. However, if we look at social welfare from a whole society point of view, the transfer of payment is not in the picture of the social welfare, right? So, if the government buy this extra quantity and store this in a storage place, the social welfare does not change at all. What is changing is who is paying for this, who bears the cost of making those goods. That's the difference. But the social welfare does not change, because those are still the only people who are able to gain surplus out of this good. Okay. Now let's look at this is a very difficult concept actually. You know, if you feel challenged, that's good, because you should be. It's very, very challenging. Now look at the last scenario we talked about. Government bought those extra quantity and gave it to the consumer to enjoy. And before, the consumer from here to here were not able to get it, right? Were not able to consume it. Now the government is going to give the goods to those consumers.
So then the cost is bear by the producer.
So now I want you to give yourself a minute. Think about it. Now how can we change the social welfare picture? Now from here to here, all these consumers are going to have a unit good, right?
But would that lessen the value of the good for the people that were already going to get it?
That's a good question.
I believe it would.
Mm-hmm.
If they just started giving out free Jordans,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
But yes,
tarnish the value of them a little bit.
they give it away. But it does not change the valuation each consumer holds for that good. Okay, this consumer gets it. This end gets good. Okay, but the valuation they get, the valuation is this much. Right? Okay, so now I want you to use this approach. To think about how do we find social welfare right now. Where is social benefit?
Okay.
Before the social benefit is just right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now the social benefit is
All the way down.
Yeah.
all of that. You agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now look at the social cost. Okay. Before we only consider this part, right? But now we have to consider all this part here, right? Because all this quantity are able to be enjoyed and used. Okay. So this is your social benefit, and this is the social cost of making the goods, right? And we need to use this function, this line here, minus this. What will you get afterwards? You use that minus that.
Little triangle.
Yeah, the little,
And
so the social welfare.
To do that calculation graphically, what we're going to do is we're going to divide the whole quantity into two parts. Okay? This is a quantity, whatever point. We look at this quantity first. For this much of quantity, this is a social benefit, this is social cost. So this is a social welfare generated from that, right? Okay, now let's look at this quantity here from here. And for the quantity from here to here, this is a social benefit, this is a social cost. Are you guys with me?
Mhm.
So how do we deal with this? This is social benefit, this is social cost. Social cost is above the social benefit.
Who's gonna pay the
Okay,
difference?
let me explain here, okay? For this product quantity, this is benefit, this is cost. So we know we use benefit minus cost, and it's going to be this area, positive, right? Part of social welfare. But now the benefit is here, cost is here, cost is higher than the benefit. So
It's negative.
it's gonna be negative, okay? So now the total social welfare is this triangle here minus this triangle here. Okay, so if these two triangles similar, you will see actually it will be similar to this, right? Okay. So that is two different scenarios. And one scenario is when the government delivers goods to the consumer, let other people to enjoy. And it's this minus that. If the government store it, does not let other people enjoy, and this is the social welfare. But no matter what, the social welfare is smaller than if the government does not intervene, right? Okay, so this tells us this. If you use a policy to change the market price, no matter how you want to compensate later, you cannot avoid social welfare loss. You cannot avoid that loss. It will always occur. Okay. Maybe occur differently, but that cannot be avoided.
Can you say that again?
Okay. If the government intervene in the market, manipulate the market price, and it is guaranteed that there will be dead weight loss. Just like that. It's guaranteed there will be dead weight loss. No matter how they will compensate that surplus or the shortage. Okay, so graphically, it's like this. Now we're going to put some numbers into it, put some function form into it, see whether you can solve the problem. Okay. This is, I do believe this is a homework problem as well, so we can go through. And it's on page 71, question 10. What we have here is QD is 92 minus 2px. Qx is equal to minus 16 plus px. And they have price floor, which is equal to 40. So this is 40, and this is 92 minus 2px, and this is represented by minus 16 plus px. And ask you to find dead weight loss. You know, if they do not give you any kind of further information, they assume that, you know, the government bought the quantity only and store it somewhere. So this will be the dead weight loss area, right? How do we find this area given those information? how do we find it? What's the first step there? So demand function, the supply function given, and the price floor is given. We're looking for the area to represent the deadweight loss. So we're looking for the deadweight loss. So assume the government stores the extra quantity somewhere, does not, deliver to give it to the other consumers. So we know this is a deadweight loss. Okay. So I'm asking you to calculate what's deadweight loss. Okay. I'm gonna do it step by step. Oh, that's it. What is the first step, please? Find the quantity. Find which quantity?
The price for.
We need to, if we want to find this area here,
You're gonna have to find those dimensions.
we need to know the base, the height, then divide by 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we want to know the base, we need to know this number, and also we need to know this one, right?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, now I'm gonna ask somebody else. Okay, how do we find this? How do we find this? We're looking at this value here. This value is corresponding value to this point. Where is this point at? Supply or demand?
Quantity demanded on the supply line.
This point is on the supply or demand? Supply. So this value here and this value here will follow
The supply curve.
follow this function. Okay, I'm gonna continue ask you here. We're looking for this value, so we will need to know this. Correct? Because once we know this, we plug this Q and into this, then we can solve this, right? Are you following me here?
Yes.
Mhm. But this is an unknown as well. How do we find this now?
Function.
Okay, tell me how to do it. How do we find this value?
You solve for it in the function.
Yeah.
You would solve for it in the function, right?
I want you
Take
to say it.
2px over.
Huh?
92 minus 2px. You solve that function.
QD
Yeah.
equal to 92 minus what? 2 multiply?
40.
40. You sure? That's the 12, right? So we know it's 12. Now we can solve this. Now I'm gonna ask you. Okay, we know this is 12 here. How do we find this? This point here is along the supply. So we're going to use supply function there, right? For this point, we already know the quantity is 12. So how do we find the price?
Let's plug it into
This will be
Yeah.
12, right?
Yeah.
And you solve this, px is equal to what? 28.
Yep.
So this is 28. So now, you say, what is the base value now for that triangle?
12.
This is our base of the triangle. What is the value right now?
12.
It's 40
Mhm.
minus 28, so it's 12. So the base is 12. But we also need to know the height. Height is this distance here, right? So which means this height here will be this distance from here to here. We already know this is 12. Now we need to find this quantity, the equilibrium quantity, right? How do we find the equilibrium quantity? You know the point we're talking about? QE,
Yeah.
equilibrium quantity. How do we find the equilibrium quantity? The quantity for this point here. You guys know how to do that one? How do we find the equilibrium quantity?
Are you gonna find out where they intersect at by putting those equations kind of together?
Yes. We said these two equal to each other.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, then you can solve px, then after you solve px, you plug back into it. Right? Why don't you guys go ahead and solve this equilibrium point? Tell me what is equilibrium quantity now? Is everyone clear about how to solve the equilibrium quantity?
No.
No? No. Okay. So this is our demand, this is our supply. At the equilibrium point, these two will be the same, and this price will be the same, right? Okay, so how do we do it? We just make into Q is equal to 92 minus 2px, and Q equal to minus 16 plus px. Because this point is on both demand and supply, right? So now what we're gonna do is, since this is Q, so which means these two are equal. If this two side, the left side is equal, the right hand side of this and this must be equal as well. So what we have is 92 minus 2px is equal to minus 16 plus px. Okay? We solve px from here, that should be easy, right? Mm-hmm. Then we move this 2px to the other side, then we have 3px. And the other side is 92 plus 16, which is
108.
36.
108. Okay. So what is px? Px equal to 36. So we know px equal to 36. So this is 36. Okay. And once we know this 36, we plug back into any one of this function here. Then we can get the equilibrium quantity, right? So 36, we plug right into here. 36 will be what? 20. So this is 20.
You could put it in either function?
Yeah. If you put right into here, 36 multiplied 2 will be 72. Is equal to 20 as well. So that's how you get these two numbers. And now with this two number, what is the height of this triangle?
24.
What is the height of triangle?
9.
Mm-hmm. What's that? What is the height of triangle?
Oh, never mind.
Triangle. We're talking about this triangle here, right? This is the base we have already calculated is 12. And now we need to find the height of this triangle, which is?
40 minus 8.
What is it?
8.
8.
40 minus 4.
So then this triangle area is equal to base multiply height divided by 2. So
24.
here will be 48, right?
Yep.
So that is that weight loss. The homework question is just like that. It takes a lot of calculation.
Jeez.
So what is helpful in this calculation is graph. If you don't draw the graph, you don't see which point you need to calculate. So you must have a graph to facilitate your calculation. Everything's clear? It is hard? A little bit?
It's tedious.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the homework problem, okay? We solved it. Right, so we still have some time left. I'm going to move on to the other policy, tax. We want to see how the tax policy influences the market outcome, influence consumer surplus, producer surplus, and social welfare. This is, we call it indirect policy. Indirect policy influence the market outcome. Okay. I'm going to use the one example in the book. Okay. So in the book, it gives you demand function. Supply function. That is question 7. Okay. Then they say the tax is $12. Immediately, I need to draw the graph. Without any calculation, you need to draw the graph. Demand supply, equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity. Can you guys find those? P star, Q star? No? Can you find those? You should be able to after we talk about the previous question, right? You just set those two Q equal to each other, then you solve Px, then you plug the value of Px back into either function, you find the equilibrium quantity. Okay, so I'm not going to do that here. Alright, so tax is $12. The tax could be on consumer or the producer, but now I assume the tax is on the producer. So which means every time they sell a unit, they have to pay a $12 to the government. Knowing this is demand supply represent this, if the tax is imposed in the market on the supplier, how this graph going to change? Producers bear the tax. Supply shift. Supply is going to shift. How is it going to shift? Shift up. Shift up? Do you agree? How do you think it's going to shift?
Yeah, supply.
Good then. Okay. So somebody says it's shifting here.
Yep.
Somebody says it's shifting here. Which one?
Which side of it? Yeah, to the left.
It should shift that way, right? Because this becomes costly now. So the supply is going to be less. So shift that way. And I want to ask you, how do you locate this new supply period given the information here? So which means if you have drawn this based on that, function. How do you draw this new supply, given this new information?
Plus
Fine.
12
Yeah.
behind.
Is this $12 is a vertical shift? Is this a $12? Or is this $12? Or is this $12? Which one?
Sure.
We know that's the shift, right? But how do you mark this $12 shift? So that is one option. Here is shift up by 12, or is shift left by 12, or shift diagonally 12. Which one it is?
Shift up.
Shift up. Who thinks shift up? 1, 2.
Well, that would mean the price would go up, so that makes sense.
So it should be shift up by $12. Because now this producer seller is going to charge $12 more for every unit sale because they want to recover the cost they pay to the government. So for every quantity, the new price is going to be $12 more than the original price. So it's up. Okay, so now we nail down the graph. We know what the graph looks like. Now let's modify this. What will be the new supply function taking this into consideration?
Turn a 1 into a 12.
Huh?
Just add 12 to it on the end,
Where do you add 12?
to the 1.
Okay, let's say, this is our original supply, right? Okay, Q and P represent the price that's represented on here. But now let's say we use PX prime represent the price on this new supply. Okay, how do we modify? QS still QS. So how do we do this? QS equal to what?
PX plus 12 minus 1, or
Plus 11.
plus 11?
Plus 11.
Plus?
Mm-hmm.
11.
It's inside bracket?
No.
Plus 12 and then the bracket minus 1.
Since it's this?
Minus 1.
You agree?
But
Any other idea, other opinion? What's the relationship between the PX prime and PX?
tax.
The PX prime, which is the price on this, right?
Mhm.
It's always $12 higher, right? So PX prime is equal to what? PX,
Plus less.
is it correct? So if we replace this PX with the relationship here, so which means PX here will be equal to PX prime. So I'm going to erase this. Okay. You agree that is true?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? Yes, do you guys see it? Okay, so now we're going to replace that with this. And this is your new supply function.
So you're subtracting it because it's prime now? The 12?
I'm subtracting this is a price represented on this supply. This is a price represented on this supply. The new price is always $12 higher, right? So that's why we have this relationship.
Right.
Do you understand this part yet? Okay. So now we just change the position. We move this 12 to the other side. Then we have px equal to px prime minus 12. So this comes from this relationship. Do you see that? Okay, so now we know px is just equal to the new price minus 12.
Okay.
Okay, then we substitute this one with this. I noticed someone never take notes. I wonder whether they can remember everything in their head. Okay, so here, I give you 30 seconds to digest this. Why do we want to derive the new supply function? Why do we want the new supply function?
To
Figure out how much there's gonna be supply demanded with the $12 tax.
That's right. We need to figure out this new quantity, new equilibrium quantity, and new equilibrium price. Right? Okay.
Use the new function to find that out.
So later on, you will use this as a supply function. You use that as a demand function. Of course, the P and here, P and P here should be the same. Okay, so you can take the prime out. Then you solve Q and solve P again. Okay. You're smiling. Some people are smiling. Think it's hard or too easy?
art test, multiple choice.
It's a problem solving just like this.
Will we get like partial credit if we have all the steps right, but we mess up a little bit?
Yes,
Okay.
you'll get partial credit. But you know, the first time you see this seems very hard or challenging. No, after you practice a few times, it's just a procedure. You know, as long as you're familiar with procedure, it's not that hard.
Template down.
When you do the homework, you'll got some practice, you know, you'll feel better. If you feel so easy right now, then that means I'm not teaching you anything. You should feel a little bit challenged in the classroom. You feel because that push you think. If everything you can just do it right there, then what's the point of taking the course and learn it from somebody? Okay. So you need to feel, you know, in each course in the classroom, you should feel a little bit challenged by the concept. That's when you know you are learning something new. Okay. All right, so this is how we solve this P star prime and new equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. I'm not going to do it here, okay, because I want to talk about the consumer surplus, producer surplus. Okay. All right. So we know originally this is consumer surplus, this is producer surplus, this is social welfare, no problem with that. So now the supply curve shift here. We have a new equilibrium point. Now can you tell me which area represents consumer surplus?
The little triangle.
Triangle on top.
This one here,
Yeah.
right? Good. Everybody agrees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's easy. But how about producer surplus? Which area represent?
It's that little triangle.
It's here, right?
Yep.
This is the price, this is supply curve, very good. It's this one. And but now, is this social welfare? How did we define the social welfare at the very beginning?
Consumer surplus plus producer surplus.
It's a gain of everyone in the society, right?
That $12
If
tax.
we own, if we only have consumer and producer, that's the sum of these two. But now,
You got the
there's a
tax.
third party. Somebody else also gain from this. Who? The
Government.
government. So we need to add government's tax revenue into it to calculate social welfare.
12 times quantity.
Okay, how do we, somebody said it.
12 times quantity.
Which quantity?
Supply.
Which quantity?
I can't read it from here, but it's the
First list.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
This one here, right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's the quantity traded by the in the market, and that's how much the government is going to collect revenue from. So 12 multiply this unit. Great. So this plus that's social welfare. But we're not fully satisfied with the graph. Why? Because we want to see where is the government's revenue on the graph. Because we want to add it to this to compare the new social welfare with the original one.
It's the little triangle to the right.
Where is the government's revenue?
Up to the right. Bam.
This one?
No. I think
This
it's
one?
the. Since you're pointing that one out, I'm gonna say yes, but I wasn't originally talking about.
What if I'm trying to confuse you?
Well, then you got me.
Okay, I achieved my goal.
Nah, I thought it was the little triangle to the right.
Okay, actually it's more complicated than that.
The whole thing.
We have to manipulate the graph right now. Right now, we can't see it. We can see where the government revenue is. So what we're gonna do is, this is a straight line, this is a straight line, they are parallel toward each other. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do a manipulation of the graph, which is, I'm going to move this producer surplus, which this triangle here, I'm going to push it down to right here. Since these two lines are parallel, and this area here is like exactly equal to this area here. Geometrically, you can prove that, but I'm not going to do it here. But you should know this area here is exactly equal to this one. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to push down the producer surplus. Instead of using this area, I'm using that. Okay? So now I'm going to so now this is our producer surplus.
Oh, okay, and you got to minus one out of it.
Okay, now you can tell me what I'm about to say.
It's that little square.
It's this whole square.
Yup.
It's the government's revenue.
Government's.
Why? Because this square, if you calculate the area of the square, it's equal to this distance multiplied by that, right?
Which is 12.
What is distance? Is this quantity
times
here?
12.
What is this distance? Which is tax
12.
per unit. So the reason I manipulate the graph this way is I show you, okay, now we know this rectangle is government's revenue. So now we see clearly where is the social welfare. We see clearly where is social welfare. It's what? It's this.
Mm-hmm.
So the dead weight loss area
Triangle.
is remain the same. It's this triangle area between the new quantity and quantity here. This is dead weight loss. Okay. So it resembles the price ceiling policy and price floor policy. When you do the homework, you should have the graph drawn next to you and you do it. And that's what I'm expecting to do on the exam. Draw the graph. Because graph and shows me that you understand this concept. Then use calculation to on the side.
You know what our first exam is off the top of your head?
October second, no, October first.
Second.
And second.
So that's what I want to talk about for this chapter. So this chapter, yes, we talk about supply and demand that we did in the principal class, but we went deeper. We know how we calculate social welfare, how the social welfare is affected by different policies. Okay, and the bottom line is that whenever you manipulate the market, you always have to suffer from the efficiency loss. You always suffer from the welfare loss.
So why would you move that triangle down here?
I move this triangle from here down so we can have this empty square.
Okay,
And this empty square represents the government's revenue.
okay.
Because this is exactly new quantity multiplied the tax unit 12. Do you guys find this challenging?
Yeah.
But once you do a few problems, for your homework, you should feel absolutely fine. Again, you should feel challenged in the class. Otherwise, you're not learning anything. Okay. And we do have tutors for this class, 2 hours each week. And I believe it's on Wednesday. Once I get to know the office and time, you can, I will send you guys in. So any other question before I let you guys go?